Hi everyone, my name is Amber, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about the books that I have recently DNF'd, which means did not finish. I usually try to do these videos kind of quarterly, but I end up often having too many quarterly videos to do because I have too many updates to tell you guys. So I haven't actually done one of these videos in probably a year. So I just wanted to talk you through the 15 books that I have DNF'd since January because I can't go back all the way to last year because that'll take forever. So yeah, I have 15 books to talk about today. I DNF'd all of these for one reason or another, which we'll get into right now. The first book that I DNF'd this year was Jungle by Yossi Ginsberg. This is a non-fiction book. I picked it up because I was really interested in his journey through the jungle. I just didn't really like the writing style. I don't know if this is translated or not, but I just found it really dull and bland and I couldn't get into it. And I actually ended up listening to a podcast about this tragedy or incident, and that told the story a lot better, which I feel a bit bad about. But yeah, this book was just so boring and it's not really what I wanted. I wanted to read about how he kind of overcame so many challenges in the jungle and what caused the group to split up. If you don't already know the story, basically this guy went into the jungle with I think 3 other travelers and they split off into 2 groups. I think 2 of them wanted to go back and 2 of them wanted to carry on because they figured they were basically at the halfway point. They might as well try to get to where they were going. Yossi and his traveling partner, they get onto a raft and there's an accident. He gets split up and dragged downstream and he ends up having to survive by himself. So it's a very interesting story, I think, and event that actually happened. So that's why I was mainly interested in reading it, but unfortunately I didn't really enjoy it. I then DNF'd 2 Miranda books, and this was such a shame because I wanted to read all of her books for a video on which Miranda book is best. So I DNF'd The Last House Guest and All the Missing Girls. I realised that the book that I gave 5 stars from Miranda may have been a fluke because I haven't loved any of her books since then. I've read all of her books now apart from these 2 which I DNF'd, and I also haven't read the latest release from this year. I kind of want to give it a go, but her books are very hit and miss, clearly. I've given her books all sorts of different ratings at this point and she has released so many of them, and I really think that the one that I did enjoy, I can't remember the name of it, but I did enjoy it. I think that was a fluke and I probably won't bother picking up any more Miranda books unless someone tells me her new release is amazing. I DNF'd The Ivy. This one is an old school YA book and I was actually trying to reread this series because I read them when I was a lot younger. I think I got my hands on these when I first started booktubing in 2010 and I loved them back then. I was really excited about the new releases every time they came out. I was really into the drama. So this is a new adult book. It came out before new adult was really a thing, and it follows a main character who goes to college. I can't remember which one. I think she might go to Harvard or something, and she kind of meets all the people there, fellow college students, some of which are older, and there's some drama and some rivalry. At one point they all go down to Mexico for a holiday. I remember it being a lot of fun, but this time around it was just insufferable. The main character was awful, all the other characters were just miserable, no one was very nice at all, and I didn't really feel like rooting for anyone, so I put the book down and DNF'd it, and I'll just treasure my previous memories of this series without rereading. It's a shame because I also wanted to recap them for recaptains, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It was just so bad. And then I DNF'd Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow because I thought it was really boring. I don't really have much else to say about this. Everyone has read this one by now, I'm sure, or at least heard of it. It's basically a contemporary romance book, I guess, about 2 friends who are video game designers or something, and they eventually get together, or they missed opportunities to get together over the years. I'm not really sure. I didn't like it. I thought it was really boring and dull, and I've tried reading another book by this author before and I didn't enjoy it, so I think it might just be her writing style that isn't for me. Please don't leave me hate comments because it's not my fault. I didn't like it. I also DNF'd Happy New Year. This is meant to be a thriller book, but it wasn't very thrilling. It was really boring. I think I DNF'd it like 10% of the way through. I can't really remember what it was about. So on my list I've put a book called Manhunter, but I think I meant Manhunt and I haven't put the author, which is really annoying, but I'm fairly sure I meant Manhunt because I didn't enjoy it. This is a dystopian horror book and I love the cover, that's why I picked it up. It's basically set in a world where men have kind of gone feral, for want of a better word, and they're being hunted, and the main characters are actually trans women and they're on what I think is hormone therapy, and so their testosterone is, I don't really know the scientific word for it, but repressed, I guess, and so they don't go crazy. But there are a bunch of women and TERFs who are after these trans women because they think they're still men, they're still going to go wild, and they therefore should be hunted and killed. So obviously it has some very dark themes. It's a horror book, so I was expecting that. What I wasn't really expecting was how boring the first part of the book would be. I thought it was going to be a little bit more action-packed and intriguing. I thought we were going to learn more about the apocalypse and how this came to be, but to be honest, we didn't. I didn't like either of the main characters really, and so I wasn't really rooting for them in a sense. Like, I wasn't all that invested in what happened to them, unfortunately. So I think this had potential, but it wasn't very good, so I DNF'd it. Then there's also the Mandals. I DNF'd this one quite quickly because I didn't like the writing style, which is a shame because I've read this author's other book, We Need to Talk About Kevin, and loved that. And that didn't take me long to get into at all, but I gave this one about 50 pages and I just didn't care, so I DNF'd it. This one, again, is another like futuristic dystopian sort of book. I think the stock markets have crashed and stuff. Couldn't really tell you anything else. To be honest, the rest was really boring. I think you'll find for a lot of these DNFs, it's not that the books offended me, it's just that they were dull, and that's my main reason for putting books down. I very rarely put books down when they like anger or offend me, because I like to carry on reading and seeing if they get better or seeing how terrible the author can be in that kind of writing. But when a book's boring, I just cannot carry on reading it because there's just nothing there. It's just meh. So anyway, in case you're wondering what makes me DNF books. The next one I DNF'd was The House in the Pines. This one is a mystery thriller book. So in this one, the main character, when she was younger, witnessed her best friend die, and she thought this was caused by this man. And then years later, when the main character is older, she sees someone else on video die in the same way that her best friend did, and the man is also present, but all her memories are like really hazy and she's a bit confused and she's not really sure what's going on. I thought this one sounded really good from the premise, but the writing style again was boring. Nothing hooked me. I read about 20% of it and then just got bored, so I DNF'd it. The Trivia Night is another thriller that I DNF'd. I don't think I'm like hating thrillers at the moment. I'm not like out of my thriller era because I still really enjoy the odd one. But I do find that the more thrillers that are published, the more they seem to play on the same tropes, and I think the genre might be slightly oversaturated. I'm really sorry to say that, but I think it might be. So I'm taking a bit of a break from thrillers now, I think, because they are all starting to feel the same, unless they're by authors that I have really enjoyed in the past. So I DNF'd this thriller book, The Trivia Night. I don't think I got very far through. I read the first 10 pages and didn't like the writing style, and I just couldn't be bothered to push through, so I didn't. And then I DNF'd The Kingdoms. This is a science fiction book, so it's set in an alternate history where France won the Napoleonic Wars, and so Britain has been overtaken by the French. Everyone's speaking French, and that has caused history to sort of divert from the point we're at now in our own timeline. Strange things have happened, and the main character wakes up one morning at the beginning of the book on a train with no memory of who he is, and he is told that he is a slave to a French person, and I think he has to go back down to like Cornwall or something, wherever he is kind of kept. And then he starts to find out more and more about this history or this alternate reality. I DNF'd this about 100 pages in. Again, it was the writing style for me with this one, I think. I found it to be quite confusing, and I know we're meant to be confused in the beginning because the main character doesn't really know who he is or what's going on or anything about the world, but I found the characters were just popping up out of nowhere. At one point, the main character had a child and I didn't even realise he had a kid, and it wasn't even a moment where like he was discovering he was a father. It was more that the author assumed that I had picked up on the fact that he was a father, and I definitely hadn't because I wasn't that invested in the book. So this one has a really good premise, but I just didn't really enjoy it, so I DNF'd it. It's a shame because I would really like to know how this ends, so I might look up some spoilers on Goodreads. The next one I DNF'd was The Same Country. This is another thriller book, and again the writing style just didn't pull me in, so I didn't bother to finish it off. I DNF'd The Sentence as well, which is by an author who I've really enjoyed in the past. I've read 2 books by her, I think Femlandia, and I can't remember the name of her debut, which is really annoying, but she writes kind of speculative dystopian books, and this one is about a world in which the death sentence has almost been abolished, but in order to sentence someone to death in the US, the person who's doing the prosecuting has to agree that if the person is then found not guilty at any point, like after an appeal or something, then they have to take their place and be given death sentence instead, because the idea is that they have to be really sure that they were behind the crime and that they do deserve the death sentence. So the premise was so interesting. This author always comes up with really interesting stuff and gives you good things to think about. But I think my issue with this one was that I didn't like the main characters, and part of this is told in letters by someone who had already been killed, and I didn't really get into it. So I DNF'd after about 100 pages, which is a shame because I was really willing or ready to love this one, but I didn't. And then I DNF'd Wishlists and Road Trips. This was a contemporary romance book. book that I started on holiday, and again I just couldn't get into it. I didn't like either the characters, and I think in a romance book you have to love the characters and feel the chemistry between them, but I didn't like either of them. I didn't think they had any chemistry, so there was no point in me carrying on. And then finally, the last one that I DNF'd so far this year is The Last One to Fall. So this is a YA thriller book. This one is about a group of friends, one of which falls from a window at a warehouse or like an abandoned building or something, and then all of the friends are then suspects and they're trying to figure out what happened to their friend. And it's told in kind of two timelines. So there's the before the incident, where you kind of see the characters all getting to know each other and becoming friends, and then it leads up to the night, and then it also flips back and forth to after, when the police are doing the kind of interrogating and talking to all the suspects and trying to figure out what happened. I found the interrogation stuff quite interesting, and the interviews that they were doing and all of the stuff afterwards, but the build-up I just didn't care about because I already knew that someone was going to die. I knew who it was fairly early on who died, and so the lead up to it, the like 200 and something pages of lead up, I just did not care about. So I stopped reading this about 100 pages in, if that. I don't even know if I got that far. I ended up skimming through and I read the ending and it wasn't very satisfying, so I'm glad that I ultimately DNF'd this. So those are a bunch of books that I have DNF'd recently so far this year. Hopefully I won't leave it as long next time, but I'm glad that I had a long list of things to talk about so that I actually had some stuff to say, because like I said, a lot of these books are just ones that I found boring, and so it wouldn't be a very good video if I was just telling you that every single one of these was dull. So I don't really have much to talk about. I like having some substance at least. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you think of them. If you think I should regret DNFing any of them, please don't try to get me to read tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, because I'm just not interested. I'm sorry if that offends any of you, and tell me which books you've DNF'd recently or what makes you DNF a book. So thank you so much for watching. I'll speak to you all in the next video. Bye.